forensic report has found that the National Arts Council irregularly adjudicated the COVID-19 relief funds meant for artists. Almost 300 million rand have been set aside for artists hit by the pandemic. eNCA's Govan Whittles has been following that story for us. He's joining us now this hour on the Midday View. Govan, good afternoon. The Natim Techa, the Minister of Arts and Culture, saying that those involved in the misappropriation of these funds will be held accountable. Any idea how this is going to be done?
Well, it will be done through a series of further investigations following this independent report that was commissioned by the National Arts Council, Bradan. And what's interesting here is that we had a group of prominent artists staging a sit-in at the National Arts Council's headquarters, saying that the 300 million rand from the presidential stimulus package that was meant to keep some of the artists afloat during the coronavirus outbreak had been siphoned off or looted. And now we have this independent forensic report commissioned by the NAC, which says that there was no fraud which was found in the dispersing of those funds. But what they did find was that the National Arts Council's board members, they actually adjudicated on the applications from artists when their mandate is restricted to oversight of the National Arts Council. That's the conflict of interest here. 5 of them have been implicated. 3 of them aren't with the National Arts Council anymore. 2 of them are still there. Their names can't be mentioned, Bradan, because the minister says he's written to 2 of them asking them to explain what happened, give their side of the story, even though they were interviewed for the forensic report. And now there's another timeline that we're on until we get those answers. But let's have a look at what the minister had to say about this.
Former council members were enmeshed in operational matters, including adjudication, and in the process were paid, which is not supposed to be the case. They violated the National Arts Council Act. They violated their own meeting, in their own council meeting, where they resolved that there would remain an oversight structure. But they didn't do that. They went and became adjudicators and got paid for that.
You know, just hearing that, I was thinking, and just what you said, that most boards, because the council is like a board is not operational. Your role is strategic. You provide oversight. You don't really get involved in the nitty-gritty. And that's where most of the problems happen in some of these public institutions. A few months ago, I interviewed some of the artists during that sit-in you referred to in terms of the funding. And they were saying that they were also surprised in hearing stories that some monies were being sent to people that they didn't even know. So, but who's this artist?
Yeah, so that's the big question. And to put it into context, today the minister's directly addressing this, saying that from the 285 million rand that was dispersed to artists, they're confident that all of that money went directly to the artists, and they won't be recovering any of that money. They believe that was money well spent that created plus minus 20,000 jobs during the pandemic, they said, and they're happy with that. And what's interesting here, Bradan, is that the forensic investigation didn't look into whether the council members and the board members who adjudicated over the applications had a relationship with the artists that were applying for those applications, and therefore would have had a vested interest in awarding those relief funds to those artists and somehow receiving some kickbacks. Clearly saying that the forensic report doesn't have that information, and the National Arts Council will take it upon itself to now investigate whether that happened. Let's hear from its acting chairperson about this report.
Applicants that were approved and contracted for more funding than they had actually applied for. Secondly, over 55% of approved beneficiaries had not been allocated funding. So they had been approved, but they had not been allocated any funding. Thirdly, the National Arts Council had approved more beneficiaries than there was funding allocated. Driven by the commitment to ensure that public funds were going to be dispersed based on principles of fairness, equity, and administrative justice, the new council then applied the following principles: that all approved and compliant applications must receive a PSP grant. And the value in terms of the number of applicants that we're talking about that had not been allocated the funding, we were sitting at about 761 applications that had been left out. and not allocated. So we then, with the new principles, ensured that all 761 must be included and be able to get the funding.
That's Telentle Dlamini, the acting chairperson of the National Arts Council. Very interesting that 700 odd applications from artists were approved, but the money was not made available. Wonder what they were waiting for. So some of the artists were saying, we've applied. They talked to us here on eNCA. I interviewed some of them. They said, but I've applied and I was told I've been approved, but I've seen no money. So hopefully this forensic investigation, as it still unfolds, the next stages of this investigation, those artists will receive the monies that is due to them because it was approved. So where's the money?